Here are the headlines for Friday morning, August 16, 2024. Coming to San Francisco, viral video shows sub-lethal remote gun protecting commercial building. A South African company, Sublethal, has developed a non-lethal remote control gun that fires standard 68 caliber paintballs with solid nylon bullets or pepper balls to deter intruders. The gun is mounted on light poles and can be controlled from a control center or via cell phone, requiring human intervention to shoot. A viral video of the weapon in use in South Africa has garnered over 5 million views. Fake images are everywhere now. Here's how to spot them. As artificial intelligence continues to develop, distinguishing between real photographs and AI-generated images is becoming increasingly difficult. Fortunately, subtle clues can help identify fabricated images, including inconsistencies in texture, anomalies in human features, and garbled writing. Hands and limbs are often poorly replicated by AI with extra or misshapen fingers and toes. Small details may be merged together in unnatural ways, and background faces in crowd photos are often blurred or poorly defined. Smooth skin with little texture is also a sign of an AI-generated photo. Two illegal aliens steal $1 million Patek at gunpoint in Beverly Hills hotel in broad daylight. Two illegal aliens from Colombia and Venezuela stole a $1 million Patek Philippe wristwatch at gunpoint from a man sitting with his wife and daughter at the patio restaurant of the Beverly Wilshire Hotel in Los Angeles. The thieves, who were part of a crime tourism ring, were caught 3 days later driving a different vehicle linked to another armed robbery in Beverly Hills, where a $30,000 Rolex was stolen. Authorities say these groups exploit the United States immigration system and make fraudulent claims to enter the country, using counterfeit identification and aliases to disguise their identity and criminal history. A couple that earns $250,000 a year says they can't find a house in their budget. Samuel and Laura Graves, both in their mid-30s, live in Portland, Oregon, and earn a combined income of $250,000 per year. Despite this, they have been unable to afford a house due to rising home prices and high mortgage rates. The couple has been looking for a house for 3 years, but refuses to exceed their budget of 30% of their monthly income, which is around $3,500 per month, for a mortgage payment. With the average home price in their area being $642,000, they're opting to wait and continue renting a 2-bedroom apartment for $2,700 per month. Hackers may have stolen every American Social Security number from background check firm. A massive data breach has exposed personal information of nearly every person in the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom, including names, email addresses, phone numbers, social security numbers, and mailing addresses. The stolen data, which totals approximately 2,900,000,000 records, was obtained from National Public Data, a background check firm based in Florida, and has been made available for free on an online Identify the Place. A class action lawsuit has been filed against the company's parent, Jericho Pictures, alleging that it failed to protect sensitive information and scraped personally identifiable data without consent or knowledge. Cybersecurity experts warn that the breach could lead to identity theft and financial crimes, but some individuals have responded with humor, noting that they don't have much to lose. Watch. Russian strategic bomber crashes in Siberia. A Russian Tu-22M3 long-range strategic bomber crashed in the Siberian region of Irkutsk during a routine flight, with all 4 crew members ejecting safely. The Defense Ministry cited technical malfunction as the cause of the crash, which occurred over an uninhabited area with no damage on the ground. Videos showed the plane catching fire while in midair and burning on the ground after crashing. This is not the first time Russia has lost a Tu-22M bomber, with Ukraine claiming to have shot one down in April, although the Kremlin disputed this. The overclass exposed. The American government's totalitarian measures have made peaceful revolution nearly impossible, increasing the likelihood of violent revolution. The underclass has been subjugated for far too long, but its knowledge, skills, and experience could be leveraged to exploit the vulnerabilities of the largest and most inflexible government since the Soviet Union. A great asymmetric insurrection could lead to a range of outcomes, from splintering and secession to the complete defeat of the government and a reconstituted confederation of states, all of which would ultimately spell doom for the overclass that has thrived on centralization of power and resources. Bayer shares soar after Roundup weed killer legal victory in Philadelphia court. Bayer AG won an appeal in the Roundup litigation, which may pave the way for a review by the Supreme Court of the United States, potentially resolving the ongoing litigation nightmare that has weighed on the company's shares. The Third Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in favor of Bayer's Monsanto, shielding the German company from a lawsuit brought by a Pennsylvania groundskeeper and blocking any attempt to add a warning label to the Roundup weed killer bottle. This decision sets the stage for the case to be reviewed by the Supreme Court of the United States, which could reduce Bayer's ultimate exposure in the overall litigation and keep settlement costs within the company's $16 billion outlay. France, political chaos. France's government is in shambles, with a budget deficit expected to reach 5.1% by the end of 2024. The country is experiencing significant immigration, with 500,000 new immigrants settling in France every year, mostly from the Muslim world. Islamic no-go zones are growing, and the police are struggling to maintain control. The recent European elections saw a surge in support for the National Rally Party, which has been vocal about denouncing Islamic left-wing anti-Semitism. Many French Jews are feeling uneasy, with some recommending that they leave France due to rising anti-Semitism. Central Intelligence Agency sees Kursk raid as having punctured the hubris of Putin. President Joe Biden said he is in constant contact with Ukrainian officials regarding the ongoing invasion of Kursk Oblast. The United States has been providing Ukraine with military equipment and supplies, including vehicles and arms used in the current operation. American officials say Ukraine will have to build on the operation with other daring operations that can push back against Russia's sense that its victory is inevitable. The Biden administration is now open to providing Ukraine with long-range cruise missiles, which would give Kiev's military greater combat punch as it seeks to gain further momentum in its fight against Russia. Kamala Harris, the non-player character candidate. Kamala Harris is aiming to appeal to the middle class by running against her previous stances, pretending to oppose policies she has previously supported. She intends to be the first non-player character candidate, standing for nothing except a desire for power with the mass media as her strongest ally and defender. This approach is designed to win over people who are not on the far left or right, but rather want to maintain their current lifestyle and consume mainstream media without critical thought. Palm Beach officials mole closing Mar-a-Lago amid heightened security. The town of Palm Beach in Florida is considering closing the Mar-a-Lago Club, owned by former President Donald Trump, due to heightened security protocols put in place after an attempt was made on his life. The United States Secret Service has closed a portion of South Ocean Boulevard, which borders the club, and this closure is expected to last until at least Election Day on November 5th. However, Mayor Danielle Moore stated that if the road remains closed, the Mar-a-Lago Club should also be closed, as it would not be possible for 350 people to safely enter the premises with the current security measures in place. Harris unveils plan to fix last 4 years of economic destruction. Vice President Kamala Harris unveiled several policies aimed at lowering costs for American families ahead of the election, including efforts to lower rent and help struggling renters. The proposals also include plans to stop data firms from driving up lease rates and prevent Wall Street firms from buying and flipping homes in bulk. Harris will call on Congress to pass 2 bills, one that would prevent corporate landlords from using private equity-backed price-setting tools to raise rents, and another that would curtail tax benefits for major investors who acquire large numbers of single-family rental homes. Additionally, Harris proposed constructing 3 million new housing units via construction tax incentives and allocating $40 billion for local governments to build or preserve affordable housing units. The Victor Davis Hanson, the weird, creepy, surreal, and dangerous 2024 campaign. The 2024 presidential campaign is the strangest in modern history due to numerous unanswered questions that highlight its unusual nature. These include Vice President Kamala Harris promising fixes for inflation and an open border without enacting them as vice president, and the media's preference to help her win while risking further credibility loss. The campaign has also established new protocols such as canceling a virtual nominee before the election and nullifying primary results. Furthermore, there are concerns about the safety of candidate Donald Trump following an attempted assassination attempt by a 20-year-old would-be assassin who easily breached security perimeters. 10 things to know about Tim Walz and his ties to Communist China. Vice President Kamala Harris' selection of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her vice presidential candidate raises concerns about his ties to the Chinese Communist Party CCP. Walz has made false claims about his military service and has a history of deception regarding his time in China. He was given the name Tianhua by the Chinese, which he misrepresented as meaning kindness when it actually means the fields of China. Walz's company, Educational Travel Adventures, brought American students to China, requiring permits from Chinese authorities that likely involved bribes or endorsements. His close ties to the CCP should disqualify him from office, and his relationship with the People's Republic of China deserves scrutiny. California Democrat revives bill to release longtime convicts who have 2 murder convictions. A California Democrat has revived a bill that would grant early release to prisoners serving life sentences without the possibility of parole, typically reserved for violent crimes such as murder, rape, and repeat offenses. The bill, spearheaded by State Senator David Cortez, targets those sentenced before 1990 who have served 25 years or more, allowing them to petition for early release based on factors including childhood trauma, military service, cognitive impairments, and age-related conditions that reduce the risk of future violence. However, the bill has raised eyebrows as it only exempts those who committed first-degree murder of a police officer, killed 3 or more people, or engaged in sexual violence, making an inmate convicted of 2 murders eligible for release, if neither crime involved a police officer or sex acts. Stocks soar, bonds and Bitcoin battered on fakes data as VIX plunges at a record pace. The retail sales data in the United States unexpectedly surged in August, largely due to significant historical revisions and an increase in auto sales. However, other economic indicators, such as home builder sentiment and the Philly Fed business outlook, have plunged, raising concerns about the overall state of the economy. The yield curve has flattened and bonds were battered on the day, while the dollar spiked following the release of the retail sales data. Meanwhile, stocks soared higher, with small caps leading the charge, despite some analysts warning that the market is not fully buying into the idea that the economic panic is over. 9 states sue Biden administration to block voter registration executive order. Mississippi and 8 other states have filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration to block an executive order that requires federal agencies to develop strategies to expand voter registration, which they claim aims to promote left-wing politicians and policies. The complaint accuses Executive Order 14,019 of partisan infection and alleges that it oversteps federal authority and violates the Constitution by encroaching on states' rights to manage their own voter registration processes. The lawsuit seeks to block implementation of the executive order, which was signed by President Joe Biden in March 2021 and directs federal agencies to explore ways to expand voter registration and participation. United Kingdom health workers ordered to ask men if they're pregnant before X-rays. Report: National Health Service staff in the United Kingdom are now required to ask all patients, including men, if they are pregnant before performing radiography as part of new inclusivity guidance. This mandate was introduced after an incident involving a trans man who was unknowingly pregnant and underwent a CT scan. The guidance states that staff must be inclusive of transgender, non-binary, and intersex patients and refrain from making assumptions about biological sex. Whistleblowers have expressed concerns that the new forms are causing confusion and anger among patients and putting their health at risk. Wealthy Chinese national engineered bogus raid to strong-arm business partner out of $37 million. 4 former law enforcement and military officers have been accused of conducting a bogus raid in 2019 that they used to extort a businessman out of $37 million. The 4 accused individuals were paid by the victim's business partner, a wealthy Chinese national, to engage in the bogus raid. They then made the businessman sign over his multi-million-dollar interest in Jiangsu Sinorgshem, a Chinese rubber chemical manufacturer. The defendants detained the victim and his family, confiscated their phones, and subjected the businessman to physical threats until he signed the agreements. The United States government asked Supreme Court to reinstate student loan relief plan. The federal government has urged the Supreme Court to reinstate its $475 billion student loan relief plan after an appeals court ruling blocked key parts of it. The plan would lower monthly payments for millions of eligible borrowers and accelerate loan forgiveness for some borrowers. A reported 8 million borrowers have signed up for the program, which was first proposed by Education Secretary Miguel Cardona in August 2022. 10 things to know about Afghanistan on the 3rd anniversary of the Taliban's return to power. Afghanistan's socioeconomic recovery is hindered by American sanctions that freeze its assets in the United States jurisdiction. The Taliban has yet to form an inclusive government as previously pledged, which has led to restrictions on women and refusal of international recognition. The country holds an estimated $1 trillion worth of rare earth minerals, but lack of formal recognition complicates plans to profit from these resources. Opium production is almost non-existent after the Taliban banned it, but farmers struggle to replace this crop with other ones. Peter Schiff, more disastrous rate cuts on the horizon. Peter Schiff, an economist and financial analyst, shares his insights on the current market situation, politics, and Bitcoin. He believes that the Federal Reserve's policy over the last few decades has made a recession inevitable, and that raising interest rates is necessary to correct the economy, despite it leading to a hard landing. Schiff notes that the markets are confident in an upcoming rate cut, which he thinks will help the market's psychology but is ultimately the wrong move. He also criticizes Bitcoin as a reserve asset, citing its high volatility during times of economic downturn. Additionally, Schiff discusses the recent developments in politics, including Kamala Harris's vice presidential pick and the crackdown on free speech in the United Kingdom, emphasizing the importance of defending people's rights to express themselves even if their views are offensive or hateful. Economic growth myth and why socialism is rising. The United States is facing an economic crisis due to decades of excess spending and debt accumulation, which will likely lead to a period of stagnant growth and high inflation. The Federal Reserve's efforts to stimulate the economy through monetary interventions have reached their limit, and further attempts to pull forward future consumption will be ineffective. Socialism and communism are not viable solutions, as they have never led to prosperity in any society. Instead, the answer lies in clearing excess debt levels, allowing personal savings rates to return to levels that promote productive investment, production, and consumption. The global attack on small business. The COVID-19 pandemic response led to the destruction of small businesses worldwide, replaced by heavily capitalized multinationals that weathered the storm. The lockdowns destroyed small shops, cafes, and restaurants in cities like Bologna, Italy, which were then bought up by chains with deep pockets. This transformation is a result of the Great Reset, a policy response to the pandemic that crushed small enterprises and transformed life for billions of people globally. The experiment has produced tremendous pain, and finding a way out will be just as painful. Small businesses have paid the highest price, and their stories may never be fully told due to the sheer number and pain of telling them. Where crime is seen as a major issue and where it isn't, the world has become increasingly less peaceful over the past 15 years, according to data from the 2024 Global Peace Index released by the Institute for Economics and Peace. The deterioration is largely due to ongoing conflicts, which have increased by almost 20% since 2008. However, other indicators such as terrorism impact and homicide rates have significantly improved, especially in the Americas. A recent Consumer Insights survey shows that crime remains a major concern for many residents of Latin American countries, with South Africa topping the list at 78%. Columbia University President Minouche Shafik resigns. Columbia University President Nemat Minoche Shafik has resigned effective immediately following months of criticism over her handling of on-campus protests against the war in Gaza. Shafik's decision to step down comes amid a period of turmoil that she said had taken its toll on her loved ones and will enable Columbia to traverse challenges ahead. She will move on to a new job with the United Kingdom's Foreign Secretary, chairing a review of the government's approach to international development and improving capability. The university's Executive Vice President for Health and Biomedical Sciences, Katrina Armstrong, will serve as interim president going forward, and it has not been announced when a new president might be appointed or who might be in the running to replace Shafik. Big technology uses more electricity than entire countries. Technology companies such as Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Apple consume enormous amounts of electricity to maintain their massive data centers. In 2023, Google and Microsoft each used 24 terawatt-hours of electricity, surpassing the consumption of countries like Jordan with a population of 11 million and Ghana with 34 million. The energy draw is largely driven by the company's use of artificial intelligence, which increases data center energy and cooling requirements. As a result, companies are doubling their electricity use in just a few years, with Google's usage growing 17% in 2023 alone. Global debt hits a new high of $315 trillion. The global debt stock reached a new record in the first quarter of 2024, increasing by $1.3 trillion in just 3 months. The surge in borrowing is a widespread trend across economies, with the United States and Japan being the largest contributors among advanced economies, while China, India, and Mexico drove the largest share in emerging markets. As a result, the global debt to GDP ratio reached 333%, with higher debt servicing costs and growing debt burdens piling up, leaving many economies in a more precarious state. United States defense firms reluctant to cooperate with Ukraine due to safety, corruption. American defense companies are hesitant to sign contracts for co-production in Ukraine due to concerns about corruption, security risks, and the potential destruction of facilities by Russian missiles. Despite Washington's efforts to increase collaboration between American and Ukrainian companies, corruption remains a significant issue, with 70% of Ukrainians believing that their government is profiteering from the war. The Pentagon has been pushing for increased cooperation, but American firms are slower to ink deals compared to European companies. Over 100,000 Los Angeles residents could be homeless by 2028 Olympics. The city of Los Angeles in the United States is facing a growing homelessness crisis, with approximately 1 in every 150 inhabitants experiencing homelessness, or 69,000 people. According to estimates from the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, this figure could rise above the 100,000 mark by 2028. Increasing affordable housing stock is part of the solution to address this issue, but it requires a multi-pronged approach and large-scale coordination, including recognizing different groups' specific needs, such as providing support for survivors of domestic violence or those battling with substance use disorders. States need to make it easier to evict squatters, report says. Squatting is increasingly becoming a problem in the United States, but most states treat it as a civil matter rather than a crime. The Pacific Legal Foundation has developed model legislation to make squatting a criminal offense and provide property owners with easier ways to remove squatters. 8 state legislatures have passed laws to criminalize squatting, including Alabama, California, Florida, Georgia, Nevada, Tennessee, Washington, and West Virginia. Other states are considering similar legislation to bolster property owners' rights against squatters, such as Colorado, which has created an expedited process for removing squatters, and Florida, which allows law enforcement to immediately remove unauthorized individuals from properties. China home prices just plunged the most since 2015. China's new home prices plummeted in July, falling the most since 2015 on a year-over-year basis, as a gauge of home builder stocks remain mired in a bear market. Policymakers are showing no signs of urgency to stimulate the economy, which means the country's battered housing sector will likely struggle to find a bottom. The People's Bank of China Governor Pan Gongsheng emphasized policy patience and stability and pledged to refrain from any drastic tightening or easing of monetary policy, while also reiterating the central bank's commitment to a 300 billion yuan relending program to help fund local government purchases of unsold homes. Barclays to withdraw from Israel bond auction amid pro-Palestine backlash. Barclays, a British banking giant, is withdrawing from new Israeli government bond auctions amid pressure from pro-Palestine activists who have criticized the bank's investments in Israel following the start of Israel's war in Gaza. The bank will continue to act as a primary dealer helping the state sell bonds, but will no longer purchase future Israeli bond offering. Pro-Palestinian groups have targeted Barclays over its ties to arms firms supplying Israel and have reported that the bank has $2 billion of investments in companies involved in supplying arms to Israel. Housing starts and building permits plunged to coronavirus disease lows in July. Housing starts and building permits in the United States have fallen to their lowest level since the COVID-19 lockdowns, with a 6.8% month-over-month decline in housing starts and a 4.0% drop in building permits. Single-family home starts plunged, while multifamily home starts rose, but single-family permits fell for the sixth consecutive month. This downturn has dragged both starts and permits to their lowest levels since the pandemic lockdowns. Futures really fizzles as dollar yields an oil slump. Global markets rose after strong United States economic data eased concerns about the economy. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 2.1% and the S&P 500 index rose 2.2%. The yield on the benchmark 10-year Treasury note surged 5 basis points to 4.13%, while gold prices were on track for a weekly gain. Crude oil fell as Libya's Waha oil field was set to return to full production after a fire reduced output. DAS are now buyers in all market scenarios becomes call the actions are now buyers in all market scenarios. The August 5 market freakout is now a distant memory as it occurred in the past. On that infamous Monday morning, systematic commodity trading advisor and volatility control funds collectively liquidated over $80 billion in global stocks, sending the Chicago Board Options Exchange Volatility Index almost as high as 70, while liquidity plunged to its lowest level on record. 3 copper charts we are watching. Copper had a significant increase in yesterday's session, with some sort of longer-term trend line being reached recently. There is also a slightly positive relative strength index divergence noted. A tactical long in China. China's discounts are now close to all-time peak levels. United States stocks rallied after retail sales and initial jobless claims data eased economic concern. There is no news article provided to summarize, only 2 steps to access NewsQuack's services.